Hi gang, Rob here. Today we have a good old-fashioned, bare bones, right to the point knife review. And this review will not be the first of its kind on YouTube. The blade that we're going to feature today perhaps has one of the highest review counts of any knife ever on YouTube. It is the outstanding Spyderco Paramilitary 2. I'm not going to bore you with dimensions and statistics. There are literally hundreds of looks at this knife on YouTube in which you can find that stuff. What I am going to talk about today, I hope, if I can get my thoughts together, is my general evaluation of this knife as the most outstanding EDC knife within a reasonable budget on the planet. I've had this particular Spyderco Paramilitary 2 for just about 2 years. As you can see, it is wearing the digital camo G10 scales. It is the standard blade steel S30V. It is extremely light for its capability. It fits the hand in a variety of grips. Here's your natural grip, and notice how the index finger tucks nicely into the primary choil and the thumb just falls right to the thumb ramp. If you notice, there is jimping on the front of the liners and on the thumb ramp. And all this jimping is the perfect sharpness. It contacts your thumb gently but with great authority. It couldn't be better. And then if you move forward into the 50-50 choil for more control, that first knuckle of your thumb is still going to fall on that jimping if you want it to, or it also lends itself to coming way up on the blade for super fine tasks. The blade on this knife, as you probably already know, is about 3.4 inches long and maybe 3 inches of cutting edge. And frankly, if we back up a little bit, it looks, and this might be my only aesthetic hit on this knife, it just appears to be a little out of proportion, blade length in relation to handle. And if we come look at the knife closed, if you can see where that tip stops, it does seem like Spyderco wastes a little bit of handle with kind of a shortish blade. And once your eye can get used to that, you sort of quit thinking about it, because, again, let's go back to grip. And this is a big improvement over the first Paramilitary. There is a bump here at the end of the handle that used to be much more pronounced and kind of either squeezed your fingers together or caused a hot spot on your pinky when you grip the knife. In the second generation of this knife, they smoothed it, made it less pronounced, and that is no longer an issue. Now, had they made the handle shorter to be more in proportion with the blade, I think this would have been more of a problem than it is. Let's talk about the reverse grip. Again, all four fingers fit perfectly in the grip of the knife. The thumb can come over the end of the knife to give you great authority for any kind of reverse move with the knife. If you want to, you can lay your middle finger in the primary choil and come up with a pinch grip on the blade. There's really no end to the ways your hand can grip this knife for various tasks. How does it carry with that sort of longish handle? Well, it does have the four-way positionable clip. I prefer to carry left hand tip up, and although the clip mount in the tip up configuration isn't perhaps the most aesthetically pleasing when you look at the at the butt of the knife, it does really facilitate a perfect carry depth. Not too much sticking out of your pocket so as to be prevalent or snag on things, but plenty to get a two-finger grip to extract it if that's what you prefer. Let's talk about the construction a little bit. We do have some very minimal G10 scales. Stainless steel liners on this knife are nested brilliantly into the handle scales, giving the knife a very thin carry thickness, but still adequate strength for what it is. And it is pure and simple, an EDC knife. This isn't something you're going to be chopping with out in the woods. It's not a heavy use folder. It's an EDC blade. The lock mechanism on the Paramilitary 2, as most of you know, is one of my favorites, Spyderco's compression lock. Reference my my knife locks video and you can get an idea how I feel about the compression lock. It is extremely strong for the materials used, although it does use a locking leaf or a portion of a liner. It is in no way a liner lock in strength. The way the lock is actuated and the way it locks up, using a much shorter section of that liner makes it infinitely stronger than a liner lock given a liner of the same thickness. It is easy to actuate with both hands. Of course, this knife is primarily a lock designed to be actuated by the right hand, but I'm a lefty, and you can see with what ease I'm able to use it. Here's the right hand. Whoops. I'm actually a little more deft with this knife in my left hand. Now I've got it fingerprinted again. The pivot on the Paramilitary 2 is Spyderco's bushing pivot, as many call it. I would really call it a shouldered pin pivot. Uses phosphor bronze washers that are trapped by the shoulders of the pivot against the liners, and then the blade is allowed to swing freely at a specified level of tension and freeness that's determined by the machining tolerances on the knife. And let's look at this real closely for a second. I'm going to fully disengage the liner, and I'm not going to apply any force to the blade, and let's see how free it swings. It doesn't get any better than that, guys. Now let's fully lock it up. I want you to watch this closely. I'm going to apply some pretty serious side-to-side forces on this blade. I don't know if you can see this, but there is absolutely no side-to-side play. There's not even much flex in this knife, in the handle or the blade. I mean, it is rock solid. Up and down play, of course, is non-existent as well. In a 3-ounce-ish knife, that's an unbelievable level of solidness. What about the blade steel? This one is, of course, in the standard steel, S30V. Beautifully satin finished. You can see Sal's and Eric's maker's marks in the blade. On the what would be the back side for a right-hander, the front side for me, you see the Golden Colorado USA Earth. On the other side, Spyderco S30V with the moderately deeply etched Spyder logo. I kind of do prefer the deeply etched version on the Taiwan knives, but this one's pretty handsome. The blade shape, I don't know what you call it. I sort of call it the Spyderco profile. I guess you could say modified clip point. It's extremely functional. It's essentially a leaf blade with a flat top. Super fine tip, but not overly weak. Great degree of belly. Full flat ground for pretty darn good slicing without being overly thin at the edge. If you notice, this is a knife I had hand sharpened and hand reprofiled for a couple years, and it was about time to do some work on it, and I do have that new Edge Pro Apex sitting there, so it got an apex edge. There we go. You can pick up the reflection. I had never really given this much thought before I ran this knife through the stones on the Edge Pro. I just assumed, oh, you know, it's S30V, it's a good steel. Spyderco is kind of known in their applications of higher end steels to heat treat them to a little softer level than some other makers do. I've noticed that my Gale Bradley in CPM M4 is a little softer than some other knives using the same steel. On my particular Paramilitary 2, however, I spent a long time going a pretty short distance on the Edge Pro. This stuff is hard, and essentially this knife is one that I reprofiled almost 2 years ago and then used in almost daily EDC roll for most of those 2 years. And other than quick touch-ups on the strop, or sometimes with the fine rods on the sharp maker, I didn't really ever resharpen this knife. So it went almost 2 years between sharpenings, and the one I just put on it I did more for fun than for necessity. So I would say that Spyderco's heat treat of S30V, at least in my knife, is extremely good. Great edge retention, hair pop and sharpness. I have no way to fault this knife. How about deployment speed? You've been watching it for 12 minutes. Let's look. That's a middle finger Spidey flick, and I'm using no effort. Barely enough pressure to hang on to the knife, and just a light flick. Look at that. What about a fast deployment via thumb hole? Pretty fast. How about a Spidey drop? I'm going to pick this up a little. I don't want to bang the handle into the table. That works well. Let's see how else. I don't think this knife flips out this way. Let's see. Yep, it does. Pretty strong detent, but you can do that. Of course, you got your normal old man slow deployment. And then, sort of like a Benchmade axis lock, you can flip it out using the compression lock. Fun knife to play with, guys. Fit and finish on the knife are impeccable. The best of golden. One of the reasons I like this knife so much is because it's sort of all Spyderco. You know, a lot of knives in their lineup are collaborations with custom makers. They're not all the vision of the Glessers. This knife is sort of like, you know, it's 100% Sal and 100% Eric. It is Spyderco's vision of what a folding knife should be, and it is executed to perfection. And I know they've made this knife in some sprint runs and some different handle colors and some different blade steels. And you pay a lot of extra money to get those, and I'm not sure they're enough better than the regular old standard Paramilitary 2 to justify the money. It's so perfect the way it is. If you're a collector with a lot of money, some of those other variations are a must, but if you're not, a plain old $120 Para 2 is a great option. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Grace and peace. Have a great day.